Hey everyone, this is Aaron from Studio 3B. Today I want to go over with you a couple ways you can make your voice audio sound much better than it would normally in your videos. Let's get started. So there's a couple different ways you can get the audio out of your video. You could drag the video straight into Reaper. If you want to see my other videos, I talk about Reaper and how I use that in my mix flow. Reaper is a great DAW, digital audio workstation. It's free and it does have a price if you want to buy the licensed version, but it's free otherwise. And it's great because you could do so much with it, and it's very powerful and it's lightweight and it's kind of like a snappy program. So anyway, starting with Reaper, if you haven't done anything with Reaper, look it up and give it a download. You can import the videos directly into Reaper and it will bring the audio out of the video into a track. And that's pretty handy because you'll be able to manipulate the audio directly in a digital audio workstation that is meant for audio. There are other ways to do this. You could use your video editing software to export just the audio track from the video. And if you're using Final Cut Pro or anything like that, you could separate the audio track and just export the audio from your video as an audio file, like a wave, and import that directly into Reaper. Or you could use plugins directly in your video editing software to manipulate the audio. That's the lesser recommended route. It's more cumbersome on the video editing software. It doesn't really work as well. It's slow and cumbersome, especially in Final Cut Pro. And it does work in a pinch, but it's not the way I usually go about doing things. So what I will do here is show you that I have a kind of an edited version of a video that I did previously, and this is the audio track from that video. And as you can see, it's a mono track. There's only one waveform, and it's all there is for voice on a video. It's just a mono track. That's all they pick up. This was recorded, I believe, on a iPhone, so the audio is on a lapel microphone, so it's not quite the highest quality microphone that you would get if you used a external audio interface and an actual real microphone. You would get a better signal there. So sometimes when you're recording videos, you need to have the flexibility of using a lapel microphone and be able to move around. So that's what this audio came from. So I'm just going to play you this clip right now with the processing on it. I'll show you what I did for processing. I have Ssl channel. And so the Ssl is not a free plugin package. It is a very good plugin package, and you can get it from Waves. The prices vary so much with Waves because they go on sale every so often, and the prices will fluctuate by hundreds of dollars. But I think I paid for $200 for like the 4 plugin package here. You get the Ssl channel, you get the G channel, you get the EQ, and you get the mix bus compressor. Anyway, so the 2 plugins I'm using to modify the audio are the Ssl Channel Mono and the Ssl EQ Mono. And then I throw a limiter on there, and that brings everything up to the correct volume that will sound better on things like YouTube, and it just come through better on audio devices because they're loud enough to hear. So let's just see how this sounds with the processing. Go to System Agent Configuration, Graphics Configuration. Primary display should be iGPU. iGPU memory should be 64 megs. iGPU multi-monitor is enabled in my case. That's a rather technical video that I did before, as you can see. Okay, let's see what this sounds like with no EQ processing. Go to System Agent Configuration, Graphics Configuration. Primary display should be iGPU. iGPU memory should be 64 megs. iGPU multi-monitor is enabled in my case. Okay, so as you can see, the voice is much more of a boxy sound. It sounds like I'm kind of muffled, and it doesn't come through as clearly, and it's just not going to be as pleasant to listen to on a long video. So let's first go over what I did to get the audio to sound more clear. I used the channel to start, and the channel is a great tool all around. You can get a lot of frequencies cut out nice and clearly, and it will help bring out the natural tones of the voice in a better way. So first thing I do is I usually start with the blue low middle frequency. I start there because it's kind of like the most effective frequency to remove. Actually, let me just remove this and add a new SSL channel. So I'll just go add SSL channel mono, right? So I'll create a new one, and I'll do this one as the one I'm going to do in the video here. So first thing I do is kind of like loop a section. So let's do that, and plus loop here, and then hit play. Go to System Agent Configuration, Graphics Configuration. So now what I'm going to do is kind of work on this loop, and I'm going to sweep around. I'm going to crank up the volume on this particular band to 15 decibels. That way I could hear what the band is doing, the band of frequencies. And I'm going to leave this in a low Q sort of shape. That's a more of a pinched arc rather than the sweeping arc up here. Then I'm going to sweep around the frequencies and see which one is the most disturbing to my ears, which one sounds the worst. And when I find the worst frequency, that'll indicate to me which ones I want to cut out. So let me hit play here.
The System Agent Configuration, Graphics Configuration.
You can see it's very boxy.
Primary display should be
bad.
iGPU. iGPU memory. The System Agent Configuration, Graphics Configuration. Primary display should be iGPU.
Okay, that sounds pretty much like the worst frequency in this band. So I'm going to take it from 15 decibels and I'm going to turn it down about 2 to 3 decibels right there. And let's see how that sounds.
The System Agent Configuration, Graphics Configuration.
That's with it.
The System Agent Configuration.
That's without it. So, I mean, you're not going to hear a huge difference by one little change, but it's going to all add up to be a significant improvement in the voice. So next thing I'm going to do is the same exact method, but I'm going to do it on the green band, which is high middle frequency. And I'm going to hit play on here, and I'm going to crank this up to 15, and I'm going to check for the worst frequency.
The System Agent Configuration, Graphics Configuration. Primary display should be iGPU. iGPU memory. The System Agent Configuration, Graphics Configuration. Primary display should be iGPU. iGPU memory. The System Agent Configuration, Graphics Configuration. Primary display should be iGPU.
Okay, I think that sounds good. So what I did here is I cranked it up to 15. I swept around to find that right around here is the worst sounding section. And so I turned that down by 3 decibels. I'd say a little over 2, between 2 and 3 decibels, I turned it down. So that basically says let's cut out the frequencies that are the harshest, and it allows the good audio sound to pop out. For high frequencies, I don't like the heavy S's and extreme harsh high sibilants in my audio. So what I do is I just turn up just a little bit there, and I go up to like around. And what you need is good headphones or monitors to really hear what you're doing. But I go up around like, 12 to 15 kilohertz, and I just bump it up about 1 or 1.5 decibels here. But I also do a little bit of a roll off. If it's just voice, I do a little bit of roll off around 19 or 20 kilohertz. So I don't want the very high frequencies coming through in my voice. And I also do a high pass filter, and I bring it up to no lower than 20 hertz. I do somewhere between 20 to 40 hertz. But let's just see how all this sounds together. So
the System Agent Configuration, Graphics Configuration. Primary display should be iGPU.
All right, that sounds okay. Let's take it off and see how it sounded originally.
The System Agent Configuration, Graphics Configuration. Primary display should be iGPU.
Okay, so it sounded a little clearer. Not a night and day difference, but okay. The next thing I like to do is just kind of compress the audio a little bit. You see that there's some higher peaks here and some lower peaks here, and it's going to be harder to listen to for the listener if they have to strain their ear in the different volume changes and fluctuations in your voice. So I just kind of do a little bit of a 2.1 or so compression ratio, and I put the threshold down to start, and I bring it back up in a second, and I adjust the release to see what sounds the best. So let's
the System Agent Configuration, Graphics Configuration. Primary display should be iGPU.
So that's good.
iGPU memory, the system agent configuration,
I'm just going to up
graphics
the threshold just a
configuration.
little bit.
Primary display should be iGPU. iGPU memory, the system agent configuration.
Okay, that's pretty good. Next thing you know is that there's some background noise. I think I had a dryer going in the background. But there's some background noise of clicking and stuff. So I wanted to kind of reduce that as much as possible. So you could put the gate on. And what the gate will do is turn off and compress the audio much more when the volume gets to a certain lower threshold. And it'll allow the voice to come out and shine and then be quiet in between the voice segments. So I'm going to put a little bit of a gate on here and see if that helps the background noise.
The system agent configuration, graphics configuration, primary display should be iGPU. iGPU memory, the system agent configuration, graphics configuration, primary display should be iGPU. iGPU memory, the system agent configuration, graphics configuration, primary display should be iGPU. iGPU memory, the system agent configuration, graphics configuration, primary display should be iGPU.
Okay, I think that sounds pretty good. Added a little bit of compression. Let's see how it sounds without it and then with it.
The system agent configuration, graphics configuration.
That's without it. Let's put it back in.
The system agent configuration, graphics configuration, primary display should be iGPU.
All right, that's with it. So again, it's not a night and day difference, but every little tweak and change you do is going to add up to be something that sounds much more pleasing to the listener while they're listening to especially a longer video, and it's going to be more engaging. The next plugin I used to really adjust the tone of the voice is the Ssl Eq Mono, and here you can see I cut out more low middle frequencies. I even cut out the bass a little bit, it seems. High middle frequency, and I boosted the high end just a bit. So let me add my own copy of this. So there. Now I have a copy of this. So now let's see how this one sounded here's without it.
The system agent configuration, graphics configuration.
And then here's with it.
Go to system agent configuration, graphics configuration.
You can see that makes a significant difference. This is a very powerful plugin. It's great for boosting frequencies as well. And sometimes I use it for cutting frequencies like I did here. So as you can see, I rolled off the low end. And I think because the bass seemed a little bit boomy in the voice originally, I wanted to just kind of mitigate that, especially at the very low end. This is like, 60 hertz or so. I have the high pass filter up to 60 hertz here, but the filter's not on, so I'm not even using that. Low middle frequency, I cut out this band right here, and I did that the same method. I boosted this here.
The system agent configuration.
You can see how harsh that sounds, and then I just kind of cut it back to like 3 decibels, negative 3 decibels.
Agent configuration, graphics configuration.
And then I did the same thing. Let's see how harsh this high middle frequency sounds.
Agent configuration, graphics configuration.
I mean, it sounds pretty terrible, so I cut this back a little bit. And then I gave it a little bit of a shine above 12 kilohertz here. That's just 1.87 decibel gain. And it's not a lot, but it's enough to bring out the clarity. It's enough to bring out the clarity of the voice, but not be too harsh and sibilant. You don't really want to put anything more than like 1.5 decibel gain on your high frequencies. It's just going to shrill the ear when you listen to it too long. So that's my processing. That's how I did the EQ, and that's how I kind of make the voice sound more pleasant to listen to in the long video. And the one final step you want to make sure you do is put a limiter on the voice to bring up the volume to what I set it at is -1 decibels as the limit, because I think that's what YouTube can work with, is -1 decibels for the limit. I think that works just fine for videos. And then I just kind of decrease the threshold so that it captures the wave that I'm listening to and boosts the frequencies, boost the volume to the correct limit. So if you just take off the limiter,
Go to System Agent Configuration.
You notice it's much
Graphics
quieter.
Configuration. Primary display.
But if you engage it,
iGPU memory.
It just gets louder. So basically, you want to make sure the release is at a good setting for voice, and that the threshold is set low enough to capture and boost the volume up to -1 decibel peak. So that's my workflow. Then what I do is I export this audio as a wave in 48 kilohertz because that's a good video resolution. So I go File, Render, and I do it to 48 kilohertz, and I set it to mono since it's just voice, and wave. And then I just render that file. I import that into my Final Cut Pro, and I just detach and delete the old audio from the video originally, or I just minimize the volume, and I drag in the new audio, and I can kind of create a new clip with that. I go about editing my video with the upgraded audio that I've done in Reaper. So that's kind of like my workflow for voice videos, and I hope this helps you. I really do, and I hope that my tips and tutorials are bringing value to you as a listener and as a viewer, and I hope you like and subscribe to my channel. And thank you very much for watching this video.